So welcome everybody to Il Bo Live, the new multimedia web magazine of the University of Padua. We are here today with the Niles Eldredge, Curator Emeritus of the Division of Invertebrate Paleontology of the American Museum of Natural History in New York. Professor Eldredge is a paleontologist, a world expert in trilobites, and a distinguished evolutionist. Along with Stephen Jay Gould, he developed the punctuated equilibria theory that significantly contributed to enrich the architecture of the Darwinian evolutionary theory. So, Professor Eldredge, a great part of your career has been devoted to show that evolution is not only a matter of genes, so the so-called microevolutionary event studied by population genetics, what happens at the macro scale, so at the population and at the species level, and in the environment at the ecological level, is also extremely relevant. Where are we today regarding this integration between micro and macro evolution?
I think that it's a wonderful event in my lifetime to have the origin of molecular biology. So now we really know much more about what's going on genetically, why organisms resemble their parents, and so on and so forth. And the goal now is to integrate it with the older narrative, which was geared at understanding how new species originate and why they look the way they do through adaptation and so forth. And it's an ongoing process. It's a tricky one because we are all trained differently. And so talking to molecular biologists, trying to work with them. I've got an example behind me. You can see the woods behind me. There's a trilobite also and some horns. But there's a rapid evolutionary event going on right now over the last 100 years, according to molecular biologists, of these little sort of halfway between a full wolf and a smaller coyote appearing in the woods. They weren't here when I was a kid, and now they're there, and they go in family packs. They hunt deer, for heaven's sakes. They're not just eating rabbits and so forth. They're wild turkeys and deer is what they love the most. And so on the molecular level, we understand they're a fusion, a hybrid between coyotes and eastern timber wolves. But behaviorally, they're sort of reinventing what we used to have here, which was the real red wolf, which are only existing in conservation areas right now. So it's very exciting to see the relentless evolution, as my friend John Thompson calls it, on the molecular level, being correlated now with what we're seeing on, very graphically, on the anatomical and behavioral morphological level. And we have the origin of a new species, apparently, just within 100 years.
Wow, that's great. And Professor, you also analyzed during your career the relationship between mass extinction and of the geologic past, and the present-day biodiversity crisis. Recently, it has been established that we entered a new geological era, the Anthropocene. Are we humans causing the sixth mass extinction?
I think humans are really mimicking what the bolides from outer space, for example, well documented at the end of the Cretaceous, when the dinosaurs and many other groups, marine groups, became extinct, and they were replaced by surviving groups. I mean, the snakes didn't go extinct, but the mammals, which were small and living in the interstices of the dinosaur world, as Al Romer used to put it, were then in a position to take over and radiate anatomically and ecologically into the niches that the dinosaurs vacated because they were eliminated through no fault of their own, basically, by these external events. So mass extinctions triggers eventual evolutionary rebounds, and with different groups. It depends on how severe it is. At the species level, when species go extinct on a regional basis, and many of them go extinct, it's usually close relatives living elsewhere that come in and take over, but there's also spurts of evolution of new species. Below the species level, it's kind of a threshold. When you have disturbance of ecological systems, then there's no true extinction going on except for the deaths of local populations, and the rebound comes through migration in of other members with other subsets of genes, of course, of the same species, and more or less recreates the ecosystems the way they were. So there is this resonance between various levels of ecological disturbance and evolution, grading from minuscule events that are hardly noticeable to these mass global extinctions. Right now, humans are globally distributed, and we're messing up the environment and driving many species extinct on an annual basis. And so, of course, those of us who care, people say, why do you care? Because if extinction drives evolution, basically, you're just going to get evolution. But the question is, I mean, the obvious answer to that is we are part of this living world. And if we mess up our world, we ourselves are at risk. So we don't want that to happen.
Professor, I thank you very much for your time and your courtesy, and all best wishes from Padova.
Thank you so much, Francesco. A pleasure.